Hi everybody, welcome back to Nasidyanka, the channel where I talk about Bulgarian history, culture and faith. This is another continuation to the question about the East versus the West faith-wise in the church. And I took, as is my style, I took notes so that I can mention a few thoughts that I had, and then I actually delved into at least one of those two major themes, which I intend to make its own separate episode with series. So that should be coming up in the following few weeks. But at this point, I'm going to start talking about ecumenism. It has it has been raised as a question, I think, many times, and it's just time to address it, and it needs to be addressed, because how can we talk about ecumenism? How can we not talk about ecumenism when we talk about faith? And how can we not talk about Orthodox Christian faith when we talk about Bulgaria? These things are indelible. So that's what I've prepared here. I've gone through a lot of material and then personal notes, and it looks like I'm going through a mess, but believe me, I am organizing it. Or I want to believe myself. I'm doing my best. I want to begin with a few opening lines, and this is related, like I said, to some reflections that I had with regards to common assumptions about the East and the West. And that goes hand in hand with me saying that, and really I want to express to all of you guys who are following this channel thankfulness for your comments and participation, and for the encouragement, and for the interest in these topics. It is definitely moving and inspiring to me to create more videos and to look for more material that's pertinent. I think that if people don't get stirred up or moved, then there is no effect. But it shows me that there is effect, and this is good. So thank you for that, for sharing your thoughts. So I had a few thoughts here on the West and the East. So far, I delineated some of the basic core differences between the Eastern Church, Orthodox Christian Church, and the Western, which includes Roman Catholicism, which broke away from the main church body in the year of 1054 AD, and then Protestantism, which is a cover-up of many, many, many other branches. So the common tendency, and I have used that terminology, I mean, clearly, how else can we talk about these two separate churches? And this is not a church we've talked about, because it has broken from the church. But the common tendency is to define it by geography. There's a difference between the East and the West. Eastern Church includes the Orthodox Christian Church, and the West includes the Roman Catholic and the Protestant. But there is something more. In this case, East and West are also not just geographical concepts, but they're also mental and psychological concepts. They can describe the spirit or the mindset of a group of people, of a person, of a group of people. They're not so much a geographical location, not so much describing ethnicity, like an ethnic kind of a background. So a thought that I had was related to this spirit that we call the Western spirit. It's spreading throughout the East part, so through East Europe. And I have heard these thoughts be shared by Russian friends of mine, Ukrainians, as well as Serbians, as well as Romanians, and I can just talk right now about Bulgarians. But this post-communist era in Bulgaria, it's post-atheist. There are post-atheist effects. And as we talked about communists, and I will continue to share as the calendar progresses, the year goes by, and I will share more and more about our saints who were martyred during communism. And there's so many, I cannot catch up basically every single day There are multiple per day. But all of them matter. All of them were human beings who were martyred during communism. So we can clearly see the fruits, the effects of communists who defined themselves as atheists, and they were basically God-hating, a God-hating political party. So the effects from that communist political power have left our people in many ways impoverished, by means of spirituality, for sure. And by spirituality, I mean specifically, people were not educated anymore into theology, Orthodox Christian theology during communism. I mean, let alone, I've already mentioned that even the history books were edited, and a lot of the information about where Bulgaria, starts, our roots, our origin was changed, manipulatively, corruptively. It was altered. So it makes sense. I can see, how and why nowadays Bulgarians are more susceptible to external influences, and many Protestants who have the spirit of fast forwardness, aggression. And what I mean by that specifically is, I'll give you examples. It is popular throughout many Protestant denominations to knock on the door and give away brochures, or to stop people on the street and give brochures and talk about the Bible, their version of the Bible. It's happened to me many times. I've lived for 25 years in the West, and to this date, when I go downtown, somebody stops me. There have been so many people, but the typical story is that somebody stops me, they give me a brochure, they ask me questions, do you know Jesus? And when I tell them I do and I'm not interested, they are very persistent in terms of how obsessive they become. Like, in my experience, people have stalked me, walking after me, insisting that I accept their brochure. It's very inappropriate. And something that I also observed years ago was there was somebody who had suggested the same idea of to an Orthodox Christian priest that I very highly revere, and I'm very thankful for. But this person was coming from a Protestant background and could not understand why we as Orthodox Christians would not create brochures and leave them in people's mailboxes, at least, right? Well, that's exactly it. Orthodoxy is not about imposing on other people. Orthodoxy is not about encroaching on other people's territory. It is the fullness of the faith. It is humble, and it is also assertive. It's not something to neglect and walk over. We don't let people walk over us, but we also don't walk, and push people to know unless they're interested. So that's a difference. But why I bring that up is because that spirit of Protestantism has taken advantage of the situation post-communist in Bulgaria and other Eastern European countries, so as to spread Protestantism. So there are many Bulgarians that I observe nowadays who are building Protestant churches, and I hear Bulgarians are creating Protestant type of music, sounding music. So this is an example of how this Western spirit doesn't only geographically exist in the West, but it also has caught up with the East, if we are to speak geographically. And this is a very unfortunate tragedy. This is how I decided to now merge things with ecumenism, because you guys can see the trajectory and what started where, how, and so forth. Before I go there, one other thing, there are a few other points here that I wanted to make as an introduction. Since I have been living again in the West for 25 years, I have very, very sweet friends here. I have very dear friends of mine who were born in the West, they were raised in the West, they live in the West. And what I really admire, I'm thankful for, and I'm glad to see this. It actually, like my husband moved here, he said it gave me hope to see that there are people who care. Um, so what has given me hope as well is to see that they have given me an example of people who step out of the box, people who seek, and in fact they do engage in a podvig. So they get out of their family atmosphere. Their families, in many cases, persecute them, offend them. Their families have spoken brutally to them because many Protestant denominations consider Orthodoxy to be some kind of made-up pagan, non-existent religion. They're very offensive in that way. But those friends of mine who have converted to Orthodoxy, it's really admirable to watch how they remain steadfast following Orthodoxy, Christ in the Orthodox correct way. Many of them have been rejected by their families. Many of them commute long distances, and some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not, but in the West, in America, we all commute long distances anyways. It's very different from Bulgaria, where I could just go within walking distance within 5 minutes away from home and buy bread and groceries. Here I have to get in my car, I have to drive about 15 or 30 minutes to get basic things that I need. But so much more it is with regards to finding a real Orthodox Christian church. And so it is amazing to watch how many of those people find it worthy and they recognize the value of commuting, even if that means 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Some people commute within 4 hours and more than that just to make it to church. And so I think about, this is the East spirit, this is the Orthodox spirit. I can't say the East spirit because, again, this is just a metaphor here. But this is the Orthodox spirit, and this is a podvig. And I can't help but contrast, with many of my counterparts in Bulgaria who have the church right beneath their noses. It's pretty much in Bulgaria, there are churches by every 5 minutes you can find a church. If you walk, you can get into a church. But it's a small minority of people who attend, unfortunately. And again, I have heard about many other countries from the Eastern Bloc suffering the same consequences. I attribute those to communism. Now, I have hope because I see my people are speaking more and more. There are those Bulgarians who are coming out in public and they are doing research and then they're providing the information. Hence, I am fascinated with the research that I have found from some of those people, and I'm sharing it with you guys in this channel. But this is something to keep in mind. This is by no way judgment, but it's just something to keep in mind that when we say West and East, it's not a geographical location. Another thing is that, the West also has its own Orthodox Christian saints. And this is so beautiful to see. For instance, in America, I know that Orthodoxy has spread from the north, and it's trickled down throughout the Americas. It's still a growing religion. People, like I've mentioned, by the masses have not even heard about it. But there are saints here, such as Saint and Martyr Peter the Aleut. There is also Blessed Matushka Olga, who was a midwife, and her husband had actually become a priest towards the end of his life. I've heard about people visiting the holy relics of Saint John of Shanghai, who is also considered a wonder worker. But I also want to add the Blessed Father Seraphim Rose. He is amazing. I pretty much believe, and I've spoken with my inner circle of friends, that he should be a canonized saint. He is a saint. It's just he hasn't been, formally declared in that way yet. But he's amazing in terms of his foresight and the writings. He basically caught ecumenism in its tracks. And what is interesting here is that when I, over 10 years ago, when I attended an OCA church, now OCA stands for Orthodox Christian Church in America, I so many things happened there, but I heard from a very dear friend about how the priest was discouraging the laity from reading Father Seraphim Rose's writings. And at the time I was confused, I was shocked, I didn't know exactly what all this was referring to. Later on I went on my own journey and I visited Bulgarian monasteries and I spoke to the monastics and the laity, and I learned from there a lot about these issues that I'm covering here. It literally felt like the world was falling on top of my head, and it was very sad how banished I was. People looked at me with a lot of judgment for asking difficult questions, and the worst and saddest part is that it was those priests within the OCA, in that case, community, that were camouflaging the truth, and they were avoiding the truth, and they were specifically making comments to me so as to shame me and humiliate me. Comments that may sound something like, "You're so prideful for wanting to talk about these issues. You're so prideful, you think that you know all of the information." So as I learned more, I'm no longer surprised that they also were discouraging the laity from reading Father Seraphim Suborev. Now, the OCA I think it is the biggest chunk in America of Orthodox Church, but the sad part about the OCA is that it is participating in the ecumenical heretical movement. And I will dig into this, like I said, I'll dig into this. One more thing here I can say is that Father Seraphim Rose is very respected in Bulgaria. So at the time when I traveled back to Bulgaria and I stayed in a few monasteries with the monastics, I actually realized how much more Bulgarians and freely they were speaking of Father Seraphim Rose, along with Father Seraphim, his archimandrite Seraphim Alexiev, and Saint Seraphim Suborev. Those are strong defenders of our modern day and age of the Orthodox faith. So what I'm trying to say is that they defended very strongly orthodoxy against the heresy that was starting during their time. So with this being said, and in the hope that we can all learn to, or at least practice respect for each other, I'm going to begin to introduce you to some of that information. I'm saying to respect each other here, and I'm pausing for a little bit because it really does take humility and patience to, in order to accept each other as we are, we have to be able to talk about our differences, and we have to be able to take criticism. We have to be able to accept corrections. This is something that naturally human beings defend against, and it's also a sign of growth. So let me delve into this. I had mentioned probably about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, this in one of my previous videos, but I'm going to go over it as a preview. Badiveren.com, and I will include that as a resource in the comment section, is a Bulgarian website that's Orthodox Christian, and it's rich in all of this information that's just important and enlightening, factual and true. So on the main website, if you visit that website, what you can see, but it's in the Bulgarian language, is a whole list of modernists. It's at the very bottom of the right. A list of the modernists. This website also makes available to the public the rudder, what we call the canons of the church. And they have put part 1 and then following up with part 2. They've also posted there the Holy Bible, as well as other documents and information in terms of the calendar matter, why the old Christian calendar is the correct one and the new calendar is a perverted movement toward, again, further separation. So for this part here, I want to read to you who the modernists are. These are writers, people who have held speeches in terms of orthodoxy. So chances are you may go to a conference, Orthodox Christian conference. I'm familiar with some local ones, but for right now, I'll just keep going. And you may even have encountered some of those, or you may read their books. You may attend somebody presenting information from them and quoting them. So the the bookstores abound in that type of information. So beware. So the modernists are Alexander Kalomiros, Alexander Men, Alexander Shmeman, Alexei Ilyich Osipov, Alexei Uminsky, Andrei Desnitsky, Archimandrite Andrew Konanos, Deacon Andrew Kuraev, Anton Vladimirovich Kartashev, Metropolitan Antony Suroshki, Metropolitan Anthony Avhrapov, Metropolitan Athanasius of Limassol, Patriarch Athenagoras the First, Patriarch Bartholomew the First, Basil Krivushin, Vasily Zenkovsky, or Basil Zenkovsky, the seminary Saint Vlad in New York, the USA, Vladimir Solovyov, priest Father George Chistyakov, also George Florovsky, George Hodr, German Ive, or German, you might call him AAV, John Mott, more kind of popular in America, Ignatius Medic, John Meyendorf, yes, John Meyendorf, John Pergam, or John of Pergam, also called Zizioulas, John Romanidis, yeah, John Avshahov, Johann Shahovsky, John Shahov, Callistus Ware, Metropolitan Callistus Ware, also Lazarus Puhalo, Maria Skoptsova, she was a nun, also a patriarch by the name Meletius Metaxakis, also Nikolai Athanasiev, or maybe Nicholas Athanasius, you might say in English, Nikolai Berdyaev, or Nicholas Berdyaev, Nikolai Zernov, again Nicholas Zernov. Then there is Moral Monism. Then there is another name, Olivier Clement, Paul Evdokimov, the Parisian Institute of Theology. I will cover that in a little bit. Pyotr Meshterinov, St. Petersburg religious and philosophical sobrania, I guess, like councils. I'll cover those later on. The Brotherhood of Saint Sophia, Sergius Bulgakov, is a very popular name, Sergius Hakel, Sindesmos, Patriarch Theophil III, Thomas Hopko. Why do I even think that I've met him, but he's been definitely mentioned at local conferences. Thomas Hopko, Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky, and Christos Ianaras. So if any of those rang a bell as I was listing those, just be warned that these are modernists. Now, for people who are not Orthodox Christian wondering what is wrong with modernism, I will be talking about this, but please bear in mind, if you're not interested in Orthodoxy, you don't have to, go there. If you have a genuine interest, stay, of course. But this is difficult information, and I know many people get triggered and upset. This is definitely not put out there for people who feel, heavy and argumentative about this. It happens to me that many times Protestants in the West ask me questions about Orthodoxy, and I have come to learn that they're not necessarily always interested. As a matter of fact, they ask me questions just to argue, and that's when I really have no interest in that. But so far, for those of you who want to know the factual truths, these are like beginning steps. All right. So at this point, I want to read to you a letter that I concocted. I found, let's see where I placed it. Okay, here it is. This is a letter that was posted on the Bulgarian, under the Bulgarian, website of the Bulgarian Patriarchy online. It's a declaration regarding Bulgaria's discontinuation of her participation in the World Council of Churches, WCC. So what it says is basically that after, and I'm just going to read it, again, the resource, I'm leaving it in the comment section for you guys to refer to. It states, and this is a statement of the Holy Synod of the Bulgarian Orthodox Christian Church in regards to the participation of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church in the ecumenical movement. After a century of Orthodox participation in the ecumenical movement and half a century of presence in the World Council of Churches, WCC, no satisfactory progress has been observed in the multilateral theological dialogue between Christians. On the contrary, the gap between the Orthodox and Protestants is getting bigger due to the growth of dozens of new sects in the bosom of certain Protestant churches, which disturb the Orthodox consciousness of Christians, not only in our country, but also in all Orthodox countries. And many deviations stand out from the original design or idea of the World Council of Churches. Regarding the aforementioned, the Holy Synod of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, in its meeting on April 9th, 1998, decided to end its participation in the WCC, World Council of Churches, bearing in mind the deviations of the World Council of Churches, and also the fact that the Bulgarian Orthodox Church in recent years did not consciously make contributions to the WCC, World Council of Churches, and did not participate in the conferences that took place, and had frozen its participation in the World Council of Churches. Based on this information, from April 29th through May the 3rd, 1998, in the city of Thessaloniki, the cultural capital of Europe, for the duration of the year of 1997, a meeting took place with representatives of all Orthodox churches at the invitation of the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, at the request of the Russian and Serbian Orthodox churches, and on the occasion of the exit of the Georgian Church from the World Council of Churches, at which the issues surrounding the participation of the Orthodox churches in the ecumenical movement and the dissatisfaction with the treatment of the Orthodox countries and their decision-making having been ignored by the World Council of Churches were discussed. The Holy Synod of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church states that it will consider whether to attend the representative to Harare, Zimbabwe, for the call for an 8th assembly of the World Council of Churches in December 1998, or we will notify the WCC in writing that we have already terminated our participation from the Office of the Holy Synod of the Bulgarian Orthodox Christian Church, written on May the 27th, 1998, Sofia, Bulgaria. Well, Bulgaria, ever since, has stepped out. And in my experience, when I used to, past ended tense, attend the OCA, I remember a lot of conversations that were kind of like diminishing and mocking the idea, bringing up questions on why Bulgaria did not attend this council or that council, why Bulgaria did what it did. Well, ecumenism is going to explain much at this point. So let's take a break here, and I will make another part. So if you stay tuned and if you subscribe, you will be updated. At least you'll receive signals when I update when I upload the new information. What I plan to talk about next is information that I found in terms of the heresy of ecumenism, what it means, and I want to also involve a timeline of its chronology, how it developed. So stay there, hang in there if you're interested. Thank you for your patience, thank you for your support and for your encouragement. I hope that this finds you well, and I believe that the truth does set us free. So there is no freedom if we cannot discuss the truth in its beautiful and its ugly sides. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Bulgaria, and there is no talk about Bulgaria without addressing Orthodox Christianity, and there can be no addressing Orthodox Christianity without talking about ecumenism and the calendar matter. So thank you so much. Stay tuned and have a great rest of the day. Bye bye.